here's the truth. Rest is productive.
Yes!
Mind blown.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Girls at ADHD.
Hello.
Hi, in case you've forgotten, I'm Anushka.
And I'm Sayaka.
And we have ADHD. We're also practitioners.
Yeah.
And this podcast is hopefully your one-stop shop about all things to do with ADHD. It's a bit unhinged.
But we made it to season 2. So this is season 2 for those who are just tuning in.
Today we're diving into a topic that could genuinely change your life if you have ADHD, self-compassion. Have you ever felt like you're constantly failing, not living up to your potential, or just not trying hard enough? Well, first of all, you're not alone.
Well, we're about to unpack why those thoughts aren't the truth. And more importantly, how you can start treating yourself with the kindness you actually deserve. So grab tea, settle in, and let's get into it.
All right, let's start with the big question. Why is self-compassion such a struggle when you have ADHD? Well, I guess, here's the deal. Most of us spend years being told that we're not living up to our potential, that we're lazy or disorganized, or that we just need to try harder. Over time, those messages stick and we start believing them. That's called internalized ableism. We've done a whole podcast episode on that.
Yes, so go check that out.
Yes. But in a nutshell, it's when society's unrealistic expectations, I guess, become our inner voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that, I would say just remember that ADHD isn't really a motivation problem. It's more of an executive function challenge. There are actually a lot of different things going on in the brains. And that means, things like organization, time management, and emotional regulation are genuinely, truly harder for us. And it's not because we're bad at life, but because your brains work differently. And yet, instead of actually thinking about how you can adapt to how your brain works or how our brain works, we often punish ourselves for not being able to fit into a neurotypical world.
That punishment is so real, isn't it?
Is.
Like, do you think, can you think of any active ways that you punish yourself every day?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. I mean, just right before recording this podcast, we were struggling so hard to actually get this podcast recording done, and I think both of us were getting frustrated, and I can see it with the both of us, and we had to actively, that is punishment in itself.
Yeah,
being
frustrated with ourselves
for not being able to do things we genuinely can't do, because as we said, it's our brains.
Yeah. And because yesterday when we were recording, we were like, all energy, all excitement, let's have the videotape on, we can do this. And today we're like, does this become a voice recording? Is that enough?
Yes.
Do we need to have some dot points somewhere?
And it's enough.
It is enough. And here we are, and we're doing it, and we're setting realistic expectations, I guess, and goals.
A video today. So sorry, you are not.
That's all right. They can see our beautiful faces elsewhere. Yeah. I guess, what's the bottom line with all of this? Well, I guess it's the fact that you're not the problem, right? Yeah. The problem is that society expects ADHDers to function like neurotypical people instead of giving us the support that we need.
Yes.
And that's where self-compassion comes in. It helps us to unlearn all the shame and self-blame so that we can start working with our brains instead of against them. And that's the key. Working with them, not against.
Yes.
And also sometimes realizing that it's not you, it's your ADHD.
Yes. And you have ADHD, so it is you. But
but is your ADHD you? And that's where we hit into existentialism. How do you start practicing self-compassion? Getting back on track.
Yes, getting back on track.
How do you start practicing self-compassion?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing is notice your inner critic and then reframe the things that your inner critic is saying to you. So, talking about self-talk. Have you ever caught yourself thinking things like, I'm so dumb. Why did I forget that again? Oh my God, I'm such a mess. That is probably internalized ableism. Again, check out our episode. But yeah, the hack is really starting to notice how many times those thoughts come up and how it comes up, and then challenging it.
Yeah. And so I guess that would look like something like, instead of saying, I'm so bad at time management, I'll never get it together, you try saying something like, time management is tough for me because I have ADHD.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use tools that actually help. And I think that small shift in self-talk takes you from self-blame to problem solving, and that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Because I do this, like, still sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm so dumb. Like, I can't believe I forgot that.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I have ADHD. My working memory is sometimes not great.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I just need to remember to write things down.
Yeah.
You don't write things down, don't make that mistake.
Yeah. It's like having facts and not blaming yourself for the facts.
Correct. 100%.
Sounds ridiculous, but it happens.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what's another thing that you can do to start practicing self-compassion?
Yeah, this ties in with some of the things we talked about in the internalized ableism episode, but just to remind you to stop measuring yourself by neurotypical standards. So this one's a really big one. So a lot of ADHDers, myself included, a lot of us feel like failures because we're comparing ourselves to people with completely different brains, like brains that are like functioning all the time consistently, right?
What is consistency?
Yeah. But what if instead of, trying to meet neurotypical standards, you actually spend time building systems that work for you? So for example, if you struggle with focus, don't force yourself to sit still. Use things like body doubling, movement breaks, or background noise to get that stimulation going so you actually have motivation to get things done. If you forget tasks, don't rely on your memory.
Oh my God, so many times I'm like, I'll remember it. No, don't.
Just don't. Like, it's not going to work. So yeah, use sticky notes, use alarms, or habit stacking and things like that.
I think as well, like, if traditional planners don't work for you, don't beat yourself up. I have so many unused planners. I tried for like a day or 2 days, don't use them. Find a system that does work. And we've done a whole episode on this and like routines and, we can even do another episode on like how to plan things out. But, things like digital reminders, visual to-do lists, like Excel spreadsheets, Google calendars, use the tools that work for you. I guess this is your reminder that your brain is not broken. You just need different tools to other people. Writing down a list and then crossing it off might not actually work for you. And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's
Find
okay.
what works for you.
100%.
And then another one I would say is give yourself permission to rest without guilt. Without guilt in bold, underline, italics, whatever, bigger H1 font, like without guilt is the main thing here. So ADHDers are so used to feeling behind.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Always.
All the time.
We feel behind. We're feeling all the time today. Like right now, at this present moment. We're like, we're not getting it done fast enough. So we treat rest like a luxury, like something that we have to earn. And that's whether that's ADHD, trauma, being a woman, being from a different culture, like who knows? Point is, we think we need to earn the rest. But instead of it actually being something that we necessarily need to actually regulate ourselves and get things done. But here's the truth. Rest is productive.
Yes!
Mind blown. So, and I remember this. I remember one of my first therapists that actually, gelled with me. Told me to do this thing where when I was tired or felt bad for resting, to just put up sticky notes everywhere going like, I'm working on myself by resting.
Oh, I love that.
And it made me go like, all right, I actually need to rest to be productive. And that just switched the game for me. And I use that with all my clients. And I was like, yes. I feel so smart, but I didn't think of this. My therapist did.
There's a grand therapist somewhere out there that is her therapist.
So if you're exhausted, forcing yourself to push through things isn't the solution. The actual solution is taking a break.
Wow. Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought?
Had no idea. I guess you could try this, right? Instead of saying, I don't deserve rest until I finish everything, reframe it to rest helps me to recharge so I can actually get things done. Use planned breaks, set a timer, set rest timers for like 10 to 15 minutes and come back refreshed, or block it out into your calendar, whatever works for you. Or even have a friend who like messages you and is like, okay, it's time for you to take your break. Swap guilt for self-care. Remind yourself that burnout doesn't make you more productive. It just makes you more miserable. And I like this. You're just sad. Don't do it. And people always use this concept of like, don't pour from an empty cup or whatever. I like using the kettle analogy.
What?
So okay, if you don't fill up a kettle and you turn it on, what happens? It burns. It burns and it breaks, right? Like, it's not good. That's what happens if you don't give yourself rest.
Right.
Whereas if you fill up the kettle and it boils, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Be a kettle.
Okay, be kettle.
Be a kettle that's filled up. Be ready for tea. Always be ready for tea. Okay, so we've talked about self-compassion, why it's important, kind of some things that you can do, but we have ADHD, so habits are hard to build.
Yes.
What are some tips for building ADHD-friendly self-compassion habits?
Yeah, I would say one of them is building like an ADHD-friendly success log.
Oh, what does that look
What is
like?
that? So basically, I think we talked about this before. We tend to focus on the things we didn't do instead of the things that we did do.
Big
So
time.
we kind of forget all the little things that we've done throughout the day. So a way to practice self-compassion that you can actually start today is building a success log. So every night writing down things that you've accomplished, no matter how small, throughout the day.
Yeah, and you can start off with like 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
It could be like sent an important email, check. Remembered to eat on time, check. Took your meds, check. I guess over time, this trains your brain to notice progress instead of just setbacks.
Yes.
And that's what we want to do. We want to retrain your brain and retrain those neural pathways that have been just honed in on for all these years.
Yeah.
What else?
And yeah, I guess to help with that dopamine boost is celebrating those small wins like they're really big deal. Because they are. Like, you doing one small thing is a huge deal sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, sometimes you can't get out of the bed. So, neurotypical people get praised for traditional accomplishments like, promotions or getting a big degree. But
cleaning your house is also a big deal.
Yeah. But like, ADHD wins can look different. And just because they look different doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to be celebrated. So things like, you finished a task that's been on your list for weeks. That's huge.
Celebrate.
Yes. Woohoo. Remembering an appointment without a reminder. Like, give yourself credit. Personally, don't do that. Don't ever get an appointment and not put a reminder.
But if you manage to remember it without your reminder, good on you.
Honestly, tell me your ways. Tell me your secrets.
Teach me.
That's wild to me. Got through a rough day without spiraling.
Massive. That's growth.
That is huge growth.
Massive growth. When you acknowledge your progress, you build confidence, and I think that confidence makes self-compassion so much easier. And we've been preaching this in all of the episodes, but find an ADHD positive community. ADHD can feel really isolating, but self-compassion grows when you connect with people who get it. Join ADHD support groups, listen to podcasts, hey, like this one, or follow ADHD-friendly creators on social media. Being around people who validate your experiences help you to realize that you're not actually alone and you're not broken. And I'm going to keep saying that as many times as I have to, because people keep coming into therapy and being like, I'm broken. And I'm like, you're not.
No.
You just need to be surrounded by people who also understand what you're going through.
Exactly. Well, I hope that gives you some things to think about in terms of self-compassion. But before we wrap up, here's a quick, cute little challenge for you.
I love challenges.
For the next 24 hours, anytime you catch yourself being self-critical, stop.
Just stop it.
Just be like, no.
Listen to this part of the podcast.
Yes. Stop it. Reframe it. So instead of, saying, I'm so bad at this, say something like, this is hard for me. That's okay. Small changes in how you talk to yourself will build up over time. I promise. It's a skill. So it's going to take time.
And I want you to remember, ADHD isn't a flaw. It's just a different way of thinking. You deserve just as much kindness as the people around you, and from yourself most of all. Don't worry about anyone else. If you can be kind to yourself, that will go like miles and miles and miles.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening to Girls at ADHD. If you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time.
See you.
Bye.
As usual, our disclaimer at the end of each episode: Girls at ADHD does not provide personalized ADHD management advice for your individual needs. Although we are mental health care practitioners, Girls at ADHD is not a substitution for therapy or counseling of any kind. Girls at ADHD exists for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon to make decisions about your mental health, well-being, and ADHD management. Advice and conversations from Girls with ADHD are general in nature and do not consider individual circumstances. Always do your research and please seek out guidance from your mental health care team or ADHD coach as required. Okay then, till next time, bye!